So this is 0. Okay, here also after 8 we'll have 10, and then after we have 12. So that is 0. So even 12 is a common number. 12 comes here, 12 comes here, 12 comes here. So there are two common numbers appearing on a screen. 6 comes everywhere, 12 comes everywhere, but the smaller number is 6. Now we have checked only 1, 2 and 3. We'll have to check another elements as well. So whatever number is common everywhere and it is the smallest positive integer, then it will be a ring, a characteristic of a ring. So at least for the first 3 elements we can see that the characteristic seems to be 6. Fortunately, it continues for the elements 4 and 5 as well. And so finally we can say that the characteristic of a ring is 6. Of course, 6, 12, 18 all are doing the role, but 6 actually is a number which is the smallest positive number, satisfying 6 into every element equal to 0, and so 6 is the characteristic of a ring. But we could see that this is actually a difficult task to find a characteristic, because that characteristic n must be a number which deals with every number to give 0. And suppose there is a bigger ring, then it is very difficult to check every element. Like here in Z6 we had only 6 numbers. So only 6 numbers, so we could check it. Even we didn't check it here. We checked for 1, 2 and 3 only, but we could have checked for 4 and 5 as well. But if we go to a bigger ring, say if there are more elements, then it is very difficult to check whether a given number is a characteristic of a ring or not. So many times our results help us. There is one more wonderful result which helps us to find out the characteristic very easily, provided that ring has the unity element inside it. And the result is this. On the screen it is, the characteristic of a ring R with unity is n if n is the smallest positive integer with n into 1 equal to 0. So a great news actually. If we check for only unity element, and if we find that for a unity element this works to give 0, then that must be the characteristic of a ring. So again, if we had suppose 100 elements in a ring, then we don't have to check all those 100 elements. Only check with 1. Which number with 1 gives 0? If say particular number n with 1 is 0, n into 1 is 0, so we don't need to check all elements. Simply n will be the characteristic of a ring. So it's a great relief. We don't have to check all the elements. Simply checking one element. Of course, that one is a very special element. It's a unity element. And if there is no number which gives 0 with 1, that means there is no characteristic, or characteristic is 0 or infinity. One more basic result, that the characteristic of an integral domain will be either 0 or a prime number. So more important is that no composite number can be the characteristic of an integral domain. So integral domain loves to work with prime numbers. Characteristic of integral domain cannot be a composite number. A very basic result, but a useful result. Now since every field is an integral domain, so if integral domain cannot have a composite characteristic, then how can a field have? So even a field cannot have a composite number as a characteristic, so its characteristic must be either 0 or prime. Next concept is of a sub-ring of a ring. We had a similar concept, subgroup of a group. So again the same continues. We say that any subset, we can say non-empty subset of a ring is a sub-ring if itself is a ring under the same binary operations. Now again, suppose R is a ring and U is a non-empty subset. If we want to check whether U is a sub-ring or not, then we'll have to check U already is a subset, so we'll have to check U is a ring or not. And ring has 8 properties, so we should check 8 properties actually to see whether U is a ring or not. And if those 8 properties are satisfied, then U will be a ring. Since it was already a subset, it will become a sub-ring. Now here there is again big rebate to us, that we don't need to check all those 8 properties for U, because it's already a subset of a ring. So we'll have some concession. Only 2 properties are required. You check that whenever you take any 2 elements in U, say A and B, and if A minus B is in U, that is one property, and second property is closure property for dot. So A minus B means A plus minus B. So if we have two elements A and B, take A, take B's additive inverse minus B and apply plus on it. If A minus B is in U, and then of course A dot B is in U, then we will say that U is a subring of R. So we don't need to bother about individual properties to be proved. So this is an important result to see whether a given non-empty subset is a some ring or not. Next result is about the ideals. One more definition here, ideal of a ring. Actually we had a concept of a normal subgroup in groups. So we can see that we are going quite parallel. Over there in group theory also we had similar concepts. Here also we have similar concepts. So it's a parallel journey. In ideal of a ring, we have two basic conditions to be satisfied. First of all, it should be, suppose I is a non-empty subset of a ring R, then it's called a left ideal of R if it's a sub-ring of R, and for any two elements R being in ring R and A belonging to I, we have R into A in I. Similarly, if we have I to be a subring of R and A into R in I, then I is said to be a right ideal. And if it is a left ideal as well as a right ideal, then we say that I is an ideal in R. So that is another concept. We can see that for any ring R, first very trivial ideal is consisting only 0 element. So if there is only 0 element, then naturally it is an ideal. And secondly, the whole of ring R, that is also an ideal always. So these two ideals are called improper ideals. The rest of the ideals which are not equal to these two are called proper ideals of a ring. Okay, let us see the difference between a subring and an ideal. We can see that Z plus dot is a subring of Q plus dot. Z is a set of integers, plus and dot are usual addition and multiplication, and similarly Q is a set of rational numbers and with usual addition, usual multiplication. We easily can see that Z is a subset of Q. Very easy to see that Z is actually a sub-ring because Z itself is a ring of Q. But Z is not an ideal of Q. We can have an example. Suppose 1 belongs to Z, 1/2 belongs to Q, but their product 1 into 1/2 is 1/2, which is not in Z. Okay, so we'll see that ideal basically deals with this kind of a concept. Suppose we have a ring R, okay, and we have a non-empty subset, say I. Then first of all, this I should be a subring of R. Suppose we take any element A here, we take any element R outside, then this inside element into outside element should be inside, and of course vice versa, R into A also should be inside, then I is an ideal. So we had the example of Q and Z. This is a ring Q, this is a subring Z. Okay, so suppose we take 1 here and 1/2 outside, then if Z is an ideal of Q, then 1 into 1/2, this multiplication must be inside the Z, but we can see that in Z we cannot have 1/2. So Z is definitely a subring of Q, but Z is not an ideal of Q. We continue with some more results. One more result is on the screen with us. It is that whenever we have a non-empty subset I of a ring R, then it becomes an ideal if we have only two conditions satisfied. Whenever A and B are in I, A minus B is in I, and whenever A is in I and R is in R, the multiplication, both were multiplications, AR and RA must be in I. So again, actually ideal has so many properties to be proved because ideal is an extension of a ring. But fortunately, if it is a non-empty subset of a ring, then we don't need to check all the properties. We check these two properties only, and if these two properties are satisfied, then we say that I is an ideal of R. We can see that the first condition is same as the condition of a subring also. Only the second condition is different. Okay, and this is once again a very sparkling example. Suppose I is an ideal and the ring has unity element 1. Then we see two cases. Again, here suppose R is a ring. Okay, this I is an ideal, and suppose R is a ring with unity. If R is a ring with unity, then it must have the unity element. Now unity element can be anywhere here. Okay. If it is outside I, there is no issue, but if it is inside I, then I is spanning this way that I becomes as big as R. So it's like if I takes hold of the unity element, I contains unity element 1, then I cannot be smaller than R and I is as big as R. So this is again a very big result. The next result is about the field. So we go to the screen again and we see that there is a result about the fields. We could see that there were two proper ideals. One is a set containing only 0 and the other is the full ring R. These two are improper ideals. But our next result says that any field cannot have proper ideals. So a field has only two ideals. They are minimum and maximum kind of a thing. So a field cannot have proper ideals. Okay, so it has only improper ideals. The converse of the result is again true with a condition implied. The condition is that ring is commutative and it has unity, and of course with no proper ideals, then R is a field. Okay, so these two are the results. Again we can see that there are two aspects. Here it is a field. Okay, if there is a field, it will not have a proper ideal, and if it is a ring, has no proper ideal, but of course ring must be commutative and with unity, and it has no proper ideals, then R becomes a field. One more definition. It is a definition of a principal ideal. Okay, so let us see how do we get a principal ideal. Suppose we have a ring R and we take any element in ring R. Suppose that element is A. Now we multiply the whole ring with A. Then we get a set. Then that set is called the principal ideal generated by element A. Okay, so we'll take an example. We know that Z is a ring. So Z has 0, 1, 2, 3 and all integers, and -1, -2, -3 and so on. Let us take some element, say 5 belongs to Z. Okay, now we multiplied 5 with the whole of Z. So we will get a set called 5Z. Let us see what do we have in this 5Z. Okay, so this 5 is multiplied to all elements. So if 5 is multiplied to 0, we'll have 0. If 5 is multiplied to 1, we'll have 5. 5 multiplied to 2, we'll have 10. So it is 0, 5, 10 and so on. And of course multiplying with negative integers, -5, -10 and so on. So this is called 5Z. It is easy to check that 5Z will definitely be an ideal. And since this is an ideal, we say that it is generated by using element 5. So we can say that this is a principal ideal generated by 5. We have next slide which says that if there is a ring which has all ideals to be principal ideals only, there is no other ideal than a principal ideal, then that ring is called a principal ideal ring. Example is here, Z plus dot is a principal ideal ring. We can easily prove it. We have some MCQs at the end, which is just for the clarity of the concept. So a couple of MCQs we'll look at. The first, a ring has how many binary operations? Very obvious answer is 2. Then a ring has which property available for dot? We can see that a ring, actually dot had only 2 properties, closure and associative. So B is the right answer. So some more MCQs for a reference, and that is about the glimpses of ring theory. Our heartful thanks to Professor Ayat Seth, who had been the former head of the mathematics department, Gujarat University, and who has written a book on abstract algebra as well. Some basic historical things were taken from www.wikipedia.com. So thank you very much for being with us. It was just the highlights of ring theory. All the proofs of results are avoided, but they are really nice proofs to go for, and I'm sure you will be motivated enough to do it. So thank you very much for being with us. Have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Sandhan, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.